been a few years, y'all, since I did anything with this. Look at the crystals. Yeah, buddy. What's up, internet peoples? I'm Matt. Welcome back to the Southern Motorworks channel. Today we're out here with a project that I've been waiting literal years to get after. This is my 1982 Yamaha XJ650 Seca, and it is by far one of my favorite wheeled vehicles that I have ever owned, driven, ridden, whatever. This thing I got as a bone stock bike, traded it for 1990 Firebird Formula 305. Yeah. Drove it all the way down to almost to Miami to swap this out. Swapped him even. Had this listed for $2,200. I had a Firebird listed for $2,200, and we swapped this thing even. I put this in the back of my buddy's pickup and drove it home. And he drove the Firebird home and blew a radiator hose on the way back. But I rode this thing back and forth, commuting to the day job for a few years. This was my main mode of transportation. This bike has been absolutely nothing but loyal to me for years. It absolutely fired up every time I needed it to. Never let me down, never left me stranded. This bike has been amazing. It was one of my greatest purchases ever in motoring since I've been old enough to be motoring. So, fast forward after a few years of riding the wheels off this thing, and we moved to Maine from Central Florida, and this got left in my parents' garage because I couldn't take it with me, obviously. Wasn't no room in the U-Haul truck, you know. So we left this in my parents' garage in 2021, and it has been sitting ever since. I pulled it up last year from Central Florida, and we're just now getting around to it about a year later. So it's been sitting in my house now for a year, down there in Central Florida for about 3 years. So we're just now getting around to it, and time has taken its toll on the old girl, sad to say. So, as I was saying, time has taken its toll on the old girl. Never mind our giant pile of parts over here. I've gathered up every spare part and extra part for vehicles that I own all over the garage, and this is an entirety, like 10 years worth of extra parts of cars collecting, and I'm finally getting this garage organized. Look at all this. Right? So that is all extra parts and old parts that are still reusable for vehicles and whatnot. And so we're going to be building some shelving in the other room and putting everything off shelves and organizing it by vehicle and whatnot. So never mind that in the background. That's a work in progress. Working on that tomorrow. Whenever we got the bike here, front wheels were locked up solid. So we had to take loose our calipers with our XJ750 slotted brake rotors and our homemade brackets here, because the caliper for a 650 is smaller, so we had to make homemade brackets. That's super sketchy now that, you know, years later I'm thinking about it. So we're probably going to swap that around. We'll figure something else out in the future. One thing at a time, guys. So, as you can see, the old girl is just covered in cobwebs all over the place. Just junk from setting, you know. Y'all know how this goes. The tires are about flat. They actually do still have some wind in them, but they are ate up with dry rot there. So we will not be using these tires, which is kind of sad because those are some Continental Classic Attack tires. I don't know if y'all have ever ridden an old school bike like this with them tires, but those tires are amazing. I mean, look at the cobwebs. Goodness gracious. Yeah, I don't think that's catching any excess brake fluid anytime again, so that'll have to get replaced. This has still got brake fluid in it there. Look at that. Well, that's refreshing. Front brakes are a little sticky. Throttle still works. You can see our throttle pin move around there, so that's good. Just cobwebs galore. Yeah. The back brake's not locked up. And the shaft drive isn't locked up or nothing. Clutch still works. Because I was able to take it in and out of gear. So the clutch is still working fine. Oh yeah, as you can see. So that's good. I really didn't want to get into clutch work on it. The biggest thing, unfortunately, while it was setting with a little bit of fuel in the bottom of the tank, it sprung a leak. I actually put a hole, screw in the hole just to stop that from going anywhere whenever we got the bike down here. Yeah, that's gonna be our biggest problem right there. I'm sure the carburetors need to be cleaned. We painted these things up nice. Look at that. Painted them all black, polished the bowls. Nice looking. I'm sure the carburetors are going to need to be cleaned. This is running pod filters on it, 4 individual pod filters. Now, before y'all bike enthusiasts freak out, I went through a lot of work and I tuned the heck out of these carburetors, and this thing ran like an absolute scalded ape with them pod filters on there, okay? The power band changed. It just had gobs of power everywhere instead of all the way up at, you know, way up in the RPM band. It ran excellent with those pod filters on there. I had it tuned perfectly. Took a lot of trial and error, but we did it. We're changing it through a bunch of jet sizes and a few other modifications that I'll show you all there. But yeah, that hole in the gas tank there is going to be our biggest problem. So yeah. But that's the state of her. The plastic is a little crusty on the old bikini fairing here. We may swap this out eventually anyways. I've trimmed up front fender. Still nice and solid. Everything else seems to have hung in there. So just some small but key things are going to fight us here. So before we move forward on anything here, we need to get some electricity running through the old girl. So that means we need to get this old decrepit battery out of there and get our new one either temporarily hooked up somehow. I got to modify the battery box because the battery that we have is slightly bigger. They don't even make the battery that's in there anymore. Or at least I couldn't find it anywhere. So the battery that we got is ever so slightly taller, so I'm going to have to modify the homemade battery box that's in there. We may just make a whole new one. That one's kind of janky. You know, all this stuff was made like 10 years ago. You know, I wasn't as well versed in automotive stuff as I am now. We'll get into that later throughout the build on this bike. Show y'all some of the less than stellar things that we did back in the day. So first off, let's get this old battery out of there, and we'll drag the new one over here and see if we can maybe just hook it up with some jumper cables or something. We got a jumper box too. So between the jumper box and the new battery with jumper cables, I'm sure we can get some juice flowing through the old girl here. So let's get after it. Okay, so one thing that I really did like on this back in the day, and I lost the wing nut now, so I'll have to find it. It's right here on the ground somewhere, but anyway, there's a wing nut that goes through here and it screws into this janky little bracket, and so that's your side plate number for old school nostalgia purposes, but also behind it is the battery compartment, right? And then we've got fuses and stuff like that in here, just kind of hanging because we did it super ghetto like, and we're going to fix all that. Don't worry. We're going to fix all that. I'm trying to remember how I even had this thing on there. I think I had the battery connected. Oh, you know what I think I got to do? We got to pull the seat off to get to the battery. Because I can get to the hot terminal here to jump it. I don't think I can get to the negative cable through here. Pretty sure that's what it is. Let me see. So the seat sort of set up like this. As you can see, the super jankily put together wiring and stuff there. So we got a couple of self-tappers there for the seat. Let me get those out. And I think most of this will lift right off there then. Let me see. All right, let me see. I think these are 1/4 inch. First time these screws have been off in, many years. Let me get a tray for all these screws and whatnot. This bike has not actually, I rode it, puking fuel out of the fuel rail because the O-rings are so worn out. over to my parents' house and parked it in their garage in 2021. That was mid 2021. So we're about 6 months from mid 2026. So it's been sitting for about 4.5 years at this point. So it's a Yamaha though. You know it's going to run, right? All right, so we got those off there. Let's lift up. And she's stuck-ish. We got those wires there. I'm trying to think. I think this, yeah, I was going to say, I don't think the tank is 100% bolted in either. There we go. I'm trying not to pull too hard on either one of these. Okay. And you know what I'm going to do? Well, actually, I'm not going to worry about it right now. We'll just park it right there. We'll put some connectors on here so that this can be disconnected and set the seat off to the side fully. But we'll do that another day. I'll just prop it on the side stand for right now. Well, those are nice and loose. That's cool. Okay. Now we've got our homemade kind of seat pan here. Well, there's the seat pan. This is our homemade. There's things mounted to this. I think most of these are, again, 1/4-inch deals. Yep, these are all 1/4-inch. Okay. Trying not to pull any wiring off here. There we go. Probably really only need to undo the one, just to get it off to the side here. Yeah, that'll work. Then when we go to start it, we'll plug that back in real quick. Cool. Look at all the spiders. Little friends that were living in my bike from Sebring. Okay, so there's our battery. As you can see, October 2017 was when the battery was bought. So let me get this disconnected and we'll get that pulled out of there. Okay, just that easy. There you go. Oh, we lost the washer. All right, so we got that all disconnected there. That is the original battery from 2017. ESTX14AH. Now, I could not find that for nothing around my location. I could not find that one. Kept losing the nuts out of it. You always save extras of those because you know you will lose one on your current battery, and then you'll need these. So like I said, I could not find that one for nothing in my area. If y'all have that around in your Walmart, ESTX14AH, let me know down in the comments there. I'm kind of curious if they quit making it or if I just can't get it in my area because I'm up here in the Panhandle now instead of Central Florida. A little bit more resources down in Central Florida. You know what I'm saying? All right. So now we've got our ground right here and our positive on this side right there. So what I want to do before we go any further, all right, so we have our new Power Sport battery here. Just picked this one up from the local Walmart. This one is a 14AA2. It's actually ever so slightly bigger than the battery that's in there. I don't even remember what the battery that's in there was, so I'll pull that one out. We'll check it out. I got to take it back up to get the core charge back for this one anyways. But this one here should be good for just about the same amount of cold cranking amps. So that was the most important aspect of it for me, that and the size. And so this one's, you know, right around the same size as that one. So I think we can make it work with no problem. But this is about $50, or you can pay about $100 for one that's already put together and ready to go. Now for me, $50 is worth filling this and having to charge it overnight for the first go around. It's really no big deal for me to do that and save half the friggin' price of the thing. So I'm going to show you all exactly how to do that. It's super simple. As long as you got a workbench and a battery charger, it's something you can do and save literally 50% of the cost of these things. So let's get into it. All right, so the first thing you're going to do here, open up your battery, and this is how it's going to come, like this right here, just like that, right? So get your battery set out here, get your plastic wrap off, obviously. Okay, so we've got our brand new battery here, and we've got our box here. This is going to contain our electrolyte mix and all that stuff that's going to go into the battery. Oy. That's it there. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is take and remove your vent caps here, right? That's these little red caps. So let's get you up here in needle nose, and you can lift them right up off there, like so. Now you make sure you hold on to these. Don't like discard them or something. Like I said, keep those off to the side there. The next thing that you're going to do is this little exhaust cap off to the side here. You want to remove that so that the battery can vent as it's charging. You can discard that. The next thing after you got your vent caps pulled off there is you're going to take your electrolyte solution. You're going to get that opened up. Now you want to make sure that you keep this stuff out of your eyes. No chance of getting it in your eyes whatsoever. That would be very bad. All right, so then you got to cut the tip of this off so that we can attach the hose to it in order to fill each cell in the battery here. So while you're doing this, make sure you're not squeezing on it or pointing it towards yourself or anything like that. That would not be good. So take your pair of scissors and just cut just the tip of it off, just like that, right? That's all you need, just like that. Now, take your little hose and whatnot that they provide you in the kit. You'll also get your, that's the bolts and nuts and washers for your connections there, for the battery terminal connections. Hold on to those also. And so what you're going to get is a tube like this, right? And so all you do is connect that right on to your electrolyte bottle, like so. Just push down on it, that's all you got to do. Make sure it's all the way on there like that. Now, you're going to go through all 6 cells, and you're going to fill them up until it hits this right in between the upper level and lower level. You want it somewhere right in between there, okay? So what I like to do is just stick the hose right down in there, and then you can start squeezing your fluid down in there. You should be able to see it start. See our level coming up there? Let me stop for a moment and I'll show you. See the fluid level down there? I don't know if y'all can see, it's a little bit hard to tell, but you want to make sure you got this pretty well level too, by the way. So just continue squeezing your fluid down in there until you get this right up, right in there. We're right in between the 2 hash marks there. And you can always add a little bit more if you need to later on. And you pull it out, try not to splash it anywhere. This hose is a bit long, so I'm actually going to cut this. That's a little better. Should make it a little bit easier to take it right up to the top of that line there. Move on to the next one. Place a little bit of light behind it maybe. Might help out. Alright, so you end up with a little bit left over, and that's just to top this stuff off with. After the initial charging, I think we're pretty good, and we've got a little bit left over to top them off with if we need it. Alright, so at this point we're all filled up for now. It's actually, everything's going to be seeping in here. I don't know if you can hear it in the mic or not. So everything's actually soaking into there. So what you want to do now is take your little vent caps that we removed earlier. If I can get my big old hand out of there. And you just gently set them over the top of there just to keep stuff from falling in. You don't want to like push them down or nothing because these need to vent. But you just want to set them down on there to keep stuff from getting in them. Now, the next step's kind of important. So you got to let this sit there and soak for like an hour. on these 14 sizes. I think some of the smaller ones only require 30 minutes. I always let it go for like an hour regardless. So we're going to let it sit here and soak in for like an hour, and then we'll come out here and put it on a low power 2 amp kind of trickle charge overnight. And then by tomorrow when we come out here to start in on this project, it should be good to go. All right, so once that's settled down and whatnot, and it's been setting for at least an hour, you can hear it's not making any noises anymore. That means the water has completely soaked into there and settled down. So now we can go ahead and double check our level, make sure that's straight, and then we'll attach our battery charger here with these little red caps still loose on there. You don't want to tighten those down. You want them to be able to vent, right? So make sure that they're all still good to go on there and can let off pressure if need be, right? And then let's just double check our level with a flashlight, and we can go ahead and get it hooked up to a 2 amp charge. All right, so just double checking our level here. A little bit high on the 1, but it should be fine once we get it. Once we get it charged here, it should level right out. So now we can take and hook up our battery charger here, and we're gonna make sure that we're going positive to positive. Just make sure those are locked in there real good. They're not gonna fall out or nothing, right? Okay, so once you get your battery hooked up here, as you can see, we've got, you know, slight amount of voltage, I guess, on there or whatever. So we're gonna go ahead and hit charge. And we'll let this go on ahead and start charging, and we'll check on it in a few hours, but we'll probably just let this set overnight and charge like this. The higher it gets, the more power it gets in there, the more it's going to calm itself down here, and the amount that it's pumping into there will go way down. All right, so we're going to let that sit there and cook probably overnight, but I'll check on it in a couple hours before I go to bed or something, and then we'll see y'all tomorrow after the day job when we get started on this project here. All right, so it's the following day. We left this battery here on charge overnight. As you can see on our battery charger here, it says flow. It's short for float. So that means it's on a trickle charge right now, 3 amp. It's been sitting there cooking like that for a while. It's not warm. We're not getting any bubbles out of here anymore, so that means this battery is good to go. You do want to, after you charge it for a while like that, you do want to just kind of double check and make sure that your water levels stayed right where they should be, and which ours did. Everything's leveled out. And so this battery is ready to go now, so we can actually take this off of there and put our battery charger away. Now you do want to make sure that you push in the vent caps, because you don't want those open anymore. So push down your vent caps, make sure those are all 100% closed. Try not to get the battery acid on your fingers. If you do, go wash it off. Okay, now this battery here is good to go. And just to show that, battery charger here offers a battery voltage thing. So we can hook it back up and read our voltage with that. 13.2 volts is what we're setting at right now. So that's going to be perfect. That's good resting rate for this battery that's fresh off the charger. So we're going to disconnect it now. I guess my multimeter took a crap. Man, I'll have to go spend another 67 cents at Harbor Freight. Actually, I might have a coupon for a free one. Either way, we'll get another one. Anyways, so this battery here is good to go. We're going to wipe some of the water that came off out of the ports off the top of it, because you don't want that sloshing and dumping on stuff. It can corrode metal. So now we can finally move forward with putting this one, getting the old battery out and putting this new battery in, or hooking it up. We may just hook it up with some jumper cables right now so that we can start trying to test fire this engine and make sure it's good to go. I want to look on the other side. This has a sight glass, which has always been kind of cloudy. We're going to stick something down in the crankcase and make sure that we still got plenty of oil in it. This doesn't have an oil leak. It never had an oil leak, but I just want to make doubly sure and check that the oil is not contaminated with nothing. And then we're going to pull the spark plugs out so that I can rotate this thing over a little bit without any spark or fuel or anything like that. I just want to rotate it, get some oil circulating around and whatnot. And then we can move forward from there. All right, so this is that sight glass I was talking about, and as you can see, it's just kind of like, I can kind of see some oil in there. You probably won't be able to see it on the computer there. or on the TV, whatever you're watching on. But we're going to stick something down in the crankcase just to make doubly sure. The last thing I want to do is try to touch this thing off and not have any oil in it or contaminated oil or something like that. All right, now this oil cap has always been kind of difficult, so I just put some tape on, some pliers there so we can try to not mess anything up. Because I'm sure there's going to be even more stuck than normal. Oh, or not. Okay. All right. Here's your clutches and everything. Oh yeah, there we go. Just took a second to get past it, but yeah, we got oil in it. Oh yeah. Heck, and it actually ain't even that bad. Look at that. It smells a little gassy, but this thing always kind of smelled like that, but that ain't bad at all. Nice and viscous still. Man, I must have done an oil change shortly before I parked this or something, I suppose. That oil is pretty well fresh looking in there. We're obviously going to change it and the filter and whatnot, but for now though, for cranking, that's going to be perfectly fine. All right, let's bust out these spark plugs so that we can get this thing turning over and see what happens. All right. Daggum, I was running E3s on this bad boy. E3.34. All right, so as you can see, you know, this thing runs a little, likes to run a little rich. That is also from probably the last time I drove it whenever it was dumping fuel like crazy. Yeah, that was just as bad. Not really expecting anything better on this side. Nope, same as the other. Yeah, same deal. Okay, so the spark plugs are pretty well shot. We might be able to clean them off enough to get them to spark a little bit, but we'll see. We'll have to see. All right, so now we've got the spark plugs out. Let's try to hook some power to this and see if we can get this thing to roll over. So first off, we're going to try our jump box here, right? All right, so let me turn the jump box on here. We got some battery. Let's see what happens. We got electricals. All right, let me do that again. Oh yeah. Actually, we might go back to analog gauges. I don't know yet. We'll see in the future. On. Awesome. Awesome. Everything turns over perfect. That's awesome. I can't believe that thing hasn't rolled over in 4.5 years. All right. So now what I'm going to do is hit these with a wire wheel real quick, clean them off, and then we can pop these back in, and then we can spray some starting fluid or brake parts cleaner or something into the carburetors, see if we can get her to touch off. Can't wait. I'm super excited. All right, so we're just gonna spray these off with some brake parts cleaner here. They came out pretty clean. So there you go. Pretty clean, I think. I think it'll be sufficient to try to fire this off. So let's get these dropped back in there. Try to see what's gonna happen. I'm thinking let's try to do it with the pod filter still on there. Maybe they'll soak in and hold a little bit of the brake parts cleaner we're about to spray on there. We're going to start off with brake parts cleaner because it's a little bit less volatile than ether. So 4 of them, you know. All right, let's see if it's going to touch off. Moment of truth here. 4.5 years ain't fired. Oh. I heard a little burble. We might have to take these carburetor or pod filters off to get something all the way in it. Yeah, I think we're going to have to take the pod filters all the way off. Luckily, they're pretty straightforward there. I am also, once I get the pod filters off, I'm going to disconnect the fuel line for the fuel tank there. I don't want that even attempting to get anything down in there. Luckily, they're just flat blade screws that hold the Alright, pod filters off. See what happens. Yeah. Yeah, buddy. Let's go. Smells like old nappy gas. Yeah, not cool. But that being said, that thing just fired off like that for the first time in 4.5 years. She's just been setting nonstop. Brakes locked up, carburetor stuck, hole in the fuel tank. But if you spray some brake parts cleaner in it, clean off the spark plugs a little bit, it touched right off. Loyal. All right. So I think we're going to call it a night there. Tonight was a success. We got it to touch off. Man, I can't believe it fired off that easy. Goodness gracious. I cannot express to y'all how happy I am to finally be working on this bike again. I cannot wait to get back in the wind. So that's going to do it for tonight. We're going to come back tomorrow and continue on this project. So y'all stick tight. We'll be right back. All right, so it's the following day. We're back out here with the old XJ650 Seca project. So today we're going to be working on getting the carburetors out because I know they're going to be atrocious after setting almost 5 years. So yesterday we heard it fire up for the first time in 5 years. Super excited. Could not believe it fired up that easy. Just a little bit of brake parts cleaner and cleaning off the spark plugs in there real quick. So today, I know, like I said, those carburetors are going to be filthy. We've got a rebuild kit for them. It shouldn't need a whole lot. It should mostly just need cleaning, but we'll check all the seals and stuff like that in there. I know the O-rings on the fuel rail itself that connect the 4 carburetors are going to be, those were leaking before, so I know they're going to be shot. So we're going to have to replace those O-rings, but mostly it's just going to be cleaning all the gunk out of them from this modern fuel. It's horrible for small engines. I always try to run fuel stabilizer and stuff like that in there. That helps out. But after setting like this, I'm sure it's going to be horrible. So let's go on ahead and move forward, and we will start pulling the carburetors off this old girl. Picked up some spark plugs at the parts store the other day too for the old girl. But we'll get to that later. We're going to line up our pod filters over here, so we can keep track of them. We'll run them on these for now, but we'll probably replace these with some other pod filters at some point. Those are super old. I don't know. It depends if we can clean them or not. If we can clean them and re-oil them. All right. So, all that fuel line is crusty in there and brittle. Anyway, this thing actually doesn't have, I think there's a screen in the petcock, which that was leaking too, so we're going to need to rebuild the petcock. But there's actually no external oil or a fuel filter there, interestingly enough. So we might be adding one at some point here onto that. Let me see. I want to say, yes, Phillips head screwdrivers on here, or Phillips head screw on here to take the carburetors off. We need to disconnect the throttle linkage from them. And I think there's a vacuum line in there somewhere. All right, so we got a couple different Phillips head screwdrivers here. First, we got to get that linkage. Disconnected. Let me see, that just clips into there. That's the clutch cable. Okay, that goes up to the intake boot, but it doesn't actually go into the carburetor. That's fine then. So I think we just need to take the linkage off. I'm wondering, I want to say before, when I took the linkage off, I think I lifted the back of the tank up. I think it's way easier. Let's try that. I want to say if I just lift this up, we can get much better access. Maybe I can just set it off to the side a little bit. Will that work? And maybe not fall. Look at the dents in it there from turning too sharp with the little clip-on bars on there. If y'all can see past the backbone, that's the throttle linkage right there that we got to disconnect from the carburetors. Trying to remember how to do all this. It's been a few years, obviously. And you got to kind of... There we go. Goodness gracious. Alright, so is there anything else? Oh, the choke cable on the other side's got to come out too. Oh, that could probably use a little juice too. I think we got to go on the other side to loosen the screw up on that one. So the choke has a Phillips head screw right here that we got to loosen up before we can do anything else. And of course, it's going to be nice and tight. Let me get the camera out of the way a little bit so I can put some force onto it here. Oh yeah, that's not gonna work. There we go. I can take that, pull it out through there so it's no longer attached to the carbs. Okay, I think that might be everything. We got the choke loose. We got the throttle cable loose from the other side. The clutch cable is off this little keeper right here. I think that's everything. We should be good to start taking these 4 Phillips head screws out on the 4 intake runners, and then we can remove it. They have these little tabs right here that keep it centered, so you're not, whenever you're tightening the screw down, it's not continuing to push down through and you're chasing it. It centers it so it can't move very far. Sometimes the little things like that make all the difference when it comes to, you know, user friendliness of working on something. You know what I mean? What do y'all got? Something on a bike, something that you could think of that just they went out of their way to do that just kind of makes everything a little bit easier to work on? Let me know down in the comments. So basically what we do from here is just grab a hold of the carburetors and you got to wiggle them out and just slide them to the rear of the bike. It's kind of a pain. Sometimes they get stuck. Sometimes they come loose. Sometimes they don't. We'll see. Oh God, yeah, old gas underneath there. That's awesome. They're gonna fight me. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna pull this tank completely off and set it off to the side. I can really kind of position myself to pull better on it. Ow! Oh, and then pinch my finger immediately. Ah, there we go. I knew it just needed a little extra force on it. Then you just kind of weave them out around the cables and whatnot. And there you go. Set of carbs. All right, just kind of looking at these here. They're not, I mean, it's not horrible. I think most of what it was indeed, I mean, the slides are a little gummy, but I mean, they're not completely stuck by any means. Let me see here if I can show y'all. Get some better light. Not stuck, not stuck, not stuck, not stuck. And we know the throttle blades are still working on them. All right, so like I said, we know our throttle blades aren't stuck. Maybe that'll work better. Trying to position the camera to where I ain't got to worry about anything spraying on it. Yeah, you see where the fuel was leaking? It ate up our paint on the bottom of the fuel rail. Oh, there's crappy gas in there. Let me get a rag. Okay. I thought these were empty, but apparently they're not. So let me get another tray for this stuff. It smells like straight turpentine too. Okay. So whenever we take these bowls off, I want to show you all the fuel, what this new fuel does after almost 5 years. But anyways, so our throttle blades aren't stuck. Those are still moving. And our choke's not stuck. That was still moving. Our slides aren't stuck. So probably about the only thing that really is stuck is the needle and seats and whatnot in here, I bet. But we are going to have to take this apart because as I said earlier, the that's our idle adjustment screw. As I said earlier, the O-rings in the fuel rail here are actually shot. And so that's where the fuel was dumping out from, because I rebuilt these carburetors all except for those O-rings right before I parked it up. Put everything back together, and it was immediately spewing fuel. I believe it was out of the middle portion here, or it may have been out of where the fuel line comes into it. But either way, we're going to be replacing all those O-rings. We're going to rebuild these carburetors, clean everything up top to bottom. Yeah, and just get these 100% tuned in. So let me go grab a couple brushes, a tray for all this stuff, copious amounts of PB blaster and brake parts cleaner, rags, the whole nine. We'll get after it. All right, so it's actually the following day. We let that set overnight just to kind of dry off and whatnot. Any of that old fuel that's out of there, there's probably still some in the bowl, but it'll be all right though. So then we're going to get into kind of deep cleaning this stuff. Also got testing out some new hats from online, a maker for them. Let me know what y'all think about it down in the comments. Should I start posting some of these up in the shop for sale? I kind of like it. I think it looks pretty good. Good price. All right. Anyways, so let's go on ahead and get after it with these carburetors. We're just going to break everything down, clean them top to bottom. That's all there is to it. We've got a few different things here that we're going to be using. We got some of the old PB blaster in case anything's stuck. We got our brake parts cleaner because we're going to be using copious amounts of this. We've got some brushes, some heads for the drill, whatnot. We got a gun cleaning kit here. Ooh, I haven't used this thing in a minute. There's all kind of stuff in here you can stick in the drill though to be able to get down in the little orifices and whatnot on the carburetor. We got some rags. It's just going to be a lot of cleaning here. That's all there is to it. Get our drill out here and ready. All right, so now we're just using an old, it's an old cookie sheet from a wore out cookie sheet from the missus inside. But it's going to be perfectly fine for this. It'll keep us from getting a bunch of brake parts cleaner, nasty stuff onto our little work table here. So, all right. Let's, I think we'll start with the bowls. Let's get them off of the bottoms here. See what kind of yuckiness is inside there. Use our little container here to keep track of all of our screws. Oh, well, not as bad as what I thought it was going to be honest. Definitely not as bad as what I thought it was going to be. There's a little rust in the bottom of it. This one was probably about dry. As you can see, I mean, everything in there looks pretty darn good. Like I said, I rebuilt these right before I parked it up, but I didn't do these O-rings, and so it was still leaking. Needle and seat ain't even stuck on that one. All right. Try to keep these in the order that they came out in. Okay, I'm just going to go through, bust all these out, and then we'll take them off. Yep, not bad on that one either. Oh, we're getting down to the other side. See, the fuel inlet comes into here, and then when the bike's leaning on the kickstand, all the fuel's leaning towards this side. That's why these two are dry. When we get over here to this side, it looks like that. So we got some gunk down in there. Definitely stuck more than the other side though, that's for sure. Got that one there. Alright, so now that final one, I think this one's going to be the worst one. Well, the gasket actually stuck to that, but that is indeed the worst one. Look at that there. Goodness. Is that like, what is this? Like a, yeah, that was a full-on crystal from it dripping rather, from the jet there. Dang thing had started to form like a, what is it in caves? Stalagmite, because you might trip over it. Yeah, something like that, I think. Anyways, yeah, not good. Not good at all. That is what the underneath of the carburetors look like. You can see this side was dry, nice and clean. The further towards the left-hand side of the bike we get, the rougher it gets, because that's the direction that the fuel was leaning in. I don't know if you guys can tell in there. It's pretty well dark, but this fuel that was in there, it's like green. That's that ethanol crap that they give us at the pump now. Look at the crystals on that jet there versus all the rest of them that are nice and clean. That carb right there is going to be stuck pretty good. Let me see. That needle, let's see. That needle valve moves good. That one moves up and down. That one moves up and down. That moves. That one is stuck like Chuck. Yeah, that needle valve is stuck like a Chuck. So this one is definitely going to be the worst off. You can really see that greenish tinge fuel, and then none of the others have it on there. Yeah. Okay, anyways, get distracted. Focus, Matt. All right, so we're going to try to remove this choke lever on the back side here. Since we're going to be taking this completely apart in order to replace those O-rings on the fuel line, we have to disassemble this a little bit more than I normally would. You can see we've loosened this one here. So you can see there's play in it now, right? Whereas the others, they move together as one unit. So this mechanism in here links this carburetor's throttle blades over to this one on this side. There's your main idle adjustment that pushes on the actual thing here that idles your engine up or down whilst it's sitting there. So the final thing that's holding these carbs together is this front plate that runs across here like this. So you're going to want to be careful because, well, like I just said, that's the final thing holding them together. So, and that just stripped out. Okay, so the only thing that's holding these together now is the tube here with the O-ring on it. So we're going to gently try to start pulling these apart. Oh God, those O-rings are like non-existent anymore. Look at how it's just completely smashed on these little mid pipes. Yep, that end too. I'm going to leave these in here so I can keep track of them, but I went ahead and just get these separated. Yeah, oh my goodness. The one that was leaking the worst. The one that was leaking the worst was where the fuel line goes in, right there. And it just, I mean, there's nothing left to it. Nothing at all. So that is, our fuel was just pouring out of there. I mean, look at that. Just nothing whatsoever. So anyways, what I'm going to do tonight, I don't think there's much to do with the slides up here. They're a little gummy, but not super bad. What's bad is these needles and whatnot, right? Horrible. We know they are. So what I'm going to do is spray a bunch of brake parts cleaner on these things and let it sit here and chew on it overnight. Tomorrow when we get home from the day job, we'll pop these jets out and whatnot. The rebuild kit came with new jets, but I think they're the factory size jets, and these jets are definitely not the factory sizes. They are completely, like I said before, we totally changed the power band on this engine and everything with pod filters and rejetting it and whatnot. So we'll probably have to try to save these jets, which is completely, that's perfectly fine. Shouldn't really be much wrong with them. They just need to be cleaned real bad. But we'll cross that bridge tomorrow when we take them out and see what's up. Hopefully they're not completely stuck, but we'll cross that bridge also. So let me soak these down, put a bunch of brake parts cleaner now, and we're just going to let it sit there and eat on that overnight. And then we'll come back tomorrow and really open everything up and get in there with all of our little brushes and whatnot and see what it looks like, see how clean we can get it. So, all right. It's pretty straightforward. All right, so it's a new day. It's actually a couple days later. We got sidetracked with some stuff on old German toe giving us fits. We'll get into that later. But for now, today, we got to finish getting these cleaned up, put back together. We got a rebuild or a bunch of rebuild kits for them. We managed to stop in at the local Home Depot, pick up what I think we needed, the screws to replace those mounting screws that were all chewed up and stripped out. I believe I got the right size, M5 by 0.8, 10 mils, 10 millimeter long. I think it's the right ones, but so basically the whole rest of this is just going to be a whole mess of cleaning and whatnot. So I'm just going to set up the camera, put some music behind it. We'll let y'all sit back and enjoy this little montage. All right. All right, so we finished off all those carburetors earlier today. So we've got them all cleaned. I'm afraid the paint's a little worse for the wear on them after setting, but we'll worry about the looks of them at another time. Right now, I'm just trying to worry about getting them all running again, So all we got left to do is kind of wipe off the bracketry that goes on it. That's perfectly fine. It's just kind of dirty, gunky. Let's see if we can remember how all this went back together. One thing we are going to be doing before we put these back in there is putting just a little bit of, this is just some engine assembly lube because I got this laying around, and just a little dab on there to help these O-rings slide on easier. and not tear on anything. These are ready to go back on the motorcycle now, I do believe. Okay, so we should be able to get away with just sliding all these straight back into there, hopefully. Yeah, the mirror boots are definitely going to need some attention at some point. There we go. Okay. Okay, cool. So those are all tightened. That stuff's still plugged in, yeah. Cool. Now we'll go to the other side. Line up the choke cable real quick. Okay. Cool. Now we have like a makeshift sort of fuel thing that we're going to use, and hopefully it holds up for a little bit. So we're going to pour a little bit of fuel in there, probably just enough. We're going to run some 2-stroke fuel in it too, just extra, a little bit of lubrication on these cylinders after setting for almost 5 years. So let me get the jump box over here and get that ready to go. We'll get this fuel stuff hooked up, and then that way we can see if the fuel line with those O-rings that we've got on there is going to hold, if there's going to be any fuel bowl leaks, anything else. And then we can, that way if we see leaks, we can just stop it right there. Right. Okay, so this is going to be our fuel setup for right now. Just put a fuel line on there. We'll pour a little bit in here. Let me get this situated. We're just going to use our camera stand over here and some zip ties, because, you know, that's the professional thing to do, right? So, I guess without further ado, let's see if we're gonna waste all this. Maybe we should put a rag over there just in case. Okay, are we leaking anywhere? Where's my light? I heard it going down to there. I don't see anything yet. You can definitely hear it filling up the fuel bowls. Got a fuel bowl leak on one, it would appear. But it doesn't seem to be coming around those O-rings anyways. Might still be able to try and run it. Okay, so we're gonna have to charge the jump box and come back tomorrow. That jump box just too dead, and I just don't. The battery doesn't really fit in there right now because the battery box isn't really the right size. So yeah, so we'll charge the jump box. We'll come back tomorrow night. Try it out then. Y'all stay tight. All right, so it's a new day. We just got home from rescuing the German tow out of a parking lot, but anyways, so we're back out here with the motorcycle. Not sure why those fuel bowls are leaking. I don't know if just the pressure, the gravity pressure from this is overloading the needles and seats. I think it's probably the O-rings are probably leaking fuel. One thing we're going to do for right now that'll help out with this situation is actually get this up on its center stand, and that should help out with leveling and whatnot. So let me see if I can remember how I used to do this. There we go. Alright, now at least the carburetors will sit level, so that should help out. Just realized my friggin' camera's fallen. Got to figure out why those fuel bowls aren't sealing right. Because the reality is this. We can sit here and troubleshoot stuff all we want to, but if I can't get the carburetors to hold fuel, this is all going to be kind of a moot point. So I've got to figure out why these carb bowls are still leaking gas. Gasket doesn't seem to be any sort of issue with it. The only thing I can think of, let me get some water and make sure that these floats actually float. Don't have holes in them. Okay, that was fine. Well, it still seems to float. There is some deterioration on the back of it. It doesn't seem to affect the floating though. Yeah. Okay. Well, at least now I know what the problem was. That means tomorrow we should be able to get the bike to fire up, because I am utterly exhausted and I'm going in for the night. We ended up with German tow stuck in the parking lot for 6 days at the local Walmart because the intelligent servo module went out on the side of the transmission, and I had to wait for it to come in the mail along with the computer because I thought I was going to have to reprogram it. Ended up not having to, but we bought the computer either way. So now we can reprogram, calibrate new modules and stuff on Mercedes Benzes. And it's a pretty cool little setup. I can download information for other makes and models too, as long as you pay for it. So I will, I'll probably make a video about that one. It's a Foxwell. I think it was a Foxwell NT530. So I'll make a video about that soon. But yeah, so got the module in, spent the better part of probably a couple hours underneath the vehicle in the Walmart parking lot, probably more than 2 hours in the heat. Besides working on the day job today, I was over there on my lunch break and after work today. So finally got it fixed, over, replaced, German tows back here at the homestead and good to go for now. So, but I'm exhausted, so I will see y'all tomorrow off from the day job, and we can hopefully get this old Yamaha fired back up. Not going to quit till I hear it run. All right, so let's try it again here. We've been fiddling with the fuel float level in the carburetors. So let's see if we got it right. Should be some fuel in the carburetors here. Fingers crossed. First start in almost 5 years. Let's go! Yeah! Woo! Okay. Heck yeah. All right. I didn't have the throttle hooked up and everything, and I don't even have the air boost tight. So let me tighten that stuff down real quick, and then we can try to rev it up, see what it's going to do. All right. So we got everything tightened down, throttle hooked back up and all. I don't see any leaks on the carburetor still. We got a little bit more fuel. We're almost out of the two-stroke fuel that we're using to run this thing. We'll have to get 5 gallons from the gas station if we want to keep going, but trying to finish this off tonight. So let's fire it up again and see what's going to happen. Idle is set a little too high. Throttle sticking for some reason there. Seems to be. Alright, so let's give it one more start here. I don't think we're going to be able to get the idle to really settle down the way we want it to because we didn't sync these carburetors, and I'm pretty sure they're out of sync. Yeah. Those carburetors are definitely not in sync. That's why it's backfiring like that. Oh, turn that headlight off. It's going to kill the battery. Yeah, that's what's causing our high idle like that, just revving like crazy. Those carburetors aren't synced up. That, and like I said, we probably got a vacuum leak from that vacuum line coming out of the where it normally plugs into the fuel tank there, into the petcock. That's going to obviously be a vacuum leak going straight into the intake boot, so that's going to make it run a little lean, pop like that, and idle high. So ain't much we can do about that until we get that pinhole fixed in the fuel tank, unfortunately. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of Southern Motorworks. We successfully got this thing up and running again, not driving at least. There's a ton more work to do on this thing. We've got to figure out the front brakes. We really need to service the forks. They're about wore slap out. It needs tires, obviously, because these are super dry rotted and whatnot. And we just need to clean the whole thing up over again, you know, clean it up all over, because there was a lot of kind of jankily stuff that I did to it all them years ago. But we successfully brought this thing back. It is firing up and running. Idle's a little high, obviously, because we're running lean. We got vacuum leaks and stuff. Carburetors need to be taken off and synced, but they are rebuilt and they are functioning properly now, more importantly, and not pouring out nasty turpentine gas all over the place. So we've still got to fix the fuel tank. It's filled with a bunch of gunk, and there's a pinhole in the side. Really needs to be repainted, but that's a whole nother project for another day. So there's tons of work left to do on this thing before we get it up and riding condition again. So if you enjoy this sort of content, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see all the future videos coming with this old 82 XJ650 Seca here. There's plenty more to come, as well as all of our crazy Euro projects and stuff like that we got going on. We've got plenty to go with that stuff. The old C230 project and our 74 Volvo project, all kinds of stuff. So like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that bell over there so y'all get the notifications, and feel free to share this stuff to your family and friends if you feel like they might enjoy seeing, you know, a good old boy in a wooden garage over here rescuing things from the dead. So I appreciate y'all hanging out with us while we saved one of our most prized possessions here, and we'll catch y'all on the next one. Right, y'all have a good one out there.